Welcome to the Nerd Tutorial Podcast, a podcast offering discussions and tutorials on nerdy subjects for people who aren't necessarily nerdy themselves. With you today is your nerdy tutor, myself, George, and with me here today, of course, my mom, and also a nerdy tutor at this point.
Why, thank you.
So
I've graduated.
We're leveling up.
Yeah.
So this week I wanted to do a bit of a review of what we've done over the last year. We've gone through quite a number of topics here this last year, and so today I wanted to talk about some of the three things that we really liked discussing here over this last year, and what of them we might continue to look into or continue to maybe do another podcast on in the future.
Okay. So,
did you want to start, or?
Okay, so like what were our favorite things?
Yeah, what were our favorite things? Well, the one exception to this is we're not going to talk about we'll talk about Japan at the end.
We kind of overdid Japan.
Yeah.
I loved it, though.
But also because I think they would both be ranked on like number one of both of our lists.
Yeah, this is true. Okay, so things that I have discovered in the last 12 months that I didn't expect to enjoy but did.
Mm-hmm.
WWE.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so you're surprised. Because I gained an appreciation for exactly how much skill that takes. It is sort of the perfect combination of athleticism and acting.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And so I went. I'm always pretty game, but I went expecting to go, oh yeah, okay, it's everything. It's all the cheese I thought it was.
Oh yeah.
And it is all the cheese I thought it was. But part of what makes any experience is how the crowd responds. And when the crowd's part of the show, it's usually a pretty good show.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, WWE has always been one of those things where, like, even if you don't care about any of the stories happening, like, just watching these people move around that ring with such ease. I mean, like, I don't think you ever got to see Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe is a big Samoan dude that moves around the ring like a gazelle. Like, so nimble and agile as he just moves around.
Well, I think actually for me, even just what I watched online, because I did watch a number of sort of from Gorgeous George on online, and even that was really kind of a fun sort of, every once in a while you need that sort of kitschy thing. The other pleasure for me was watching them really develop women.
Oh yeah, it's been a real push over the last couple of years here, where they've really made a point of pushing women and having their wrestling be as focal point as the men's wrestling. And with WrestleMania 35 here this last season, they were the final match of the evening.
Well, and yeah, and I guess that was really a pleasure for me. So a couple of things I really enjoyed. I enjoyed seeing some of the people I'd seen on WrestleMania in person.
Oh yes, when we
saw several event. Yeah, I enjoyed seeing sort of how it developed, and the growth from Gorgeous George, which I remember when I was a kid, wrestling was on Saturdays. And then I think I could be a Becky Lynch fan.
Oh, Becky Lynch is awesome.
Yeah.
Still the Raw Women's Champion here since WrestleMania, so very long lasting. And speaking of wrestling, we have the Royal Rumble coming up. So the best way to describe this here is the Royal Rumble is the kickoff to what they call the WrestleMania season, which will go all the way up until April when they have the next WrestleMania. And what's cool about the Royal Rumble is that you have a 30-person, in this case there'll be a men's and there will be a women's, and it's a 30-person over-the-top battle royale, which basically means that...
Are there 30 people even competing in this?
Yes, every year. On the men's side, actually, you get to a point where you start seeing certain wrestlers, you're just like, oh, I know this guy's not winning. I know this guy's not winning. Ooh, this might be a contender. Oh, but this guy's not winning. Like, they fill it out quite a bit with the mid card, so it gets a little distracting sometimes because you watch it enough. You're just like, oh, it's you from a tag team division. yeah, you're not going to win.
Yeah.
Be nice if that were the case, to really surprise
A surprise, yeah.
But the way it works is that two men or women, either one, starts in the ring first, and then every about minute and a half every about minute to minute and a half, a new wrestler gets added to the mix, and they'll keep going through all 30 wrestlers. Now, to get eliminated from the match, you have to be tossed over the top rope, and both of your feet have to touch the ground.
So you could just hang on and hang on to the side and not touch the ground and still be
you could walk with your hands on the ground. You could, so long as you don't touch the ground with your feet, you survive. There's a number of wrestlers that have made a point of finding ways to avoid touching the ground that way.
And you talked about the mid-card participating. Well, actually, it's a chance for the mid-card to see big time.
Mm-hmm. Well, at worst,
that's kind of egalitarian, for lack of a better word.
Well, I don't disregard the mid-card at all. There's a number of mid-carders that I really enjoy. Like The Miz is a perpetual mid-carder. Him and Dolph Ziggler are excellent wrestlers, but neither one of them are ever sniffing the championship title these days. And I feel really bad because I like these guys and I wish they would get to the championship level because,
Are they just not showmen enough?
No, it's often a lot of the time what, the office wants to push. Okay. If you can imagine, it's do we... a lot of the concerns at the end of the day are just how much the office will push you at the end of the day, and they want to make big stars out of big notable names. And with the example, The Miz has been around since
that's a name I recognize.
2007, 2008. He's been the champion before and gone to WrestleMania with the championship and won at the end of the day. But it's his only WWE championship that he's ever had. He's never sniffed it otherwise. He's been Intercontinental champion 8 to 9 times now. He's been a tag team champion, a United States champion, which is kind of comparable to the Intercontinental. But they won't let him get to the big top anymore. And it's kind of odd why, because he's a constant fixture. It's not like he's on.
How old is he? I don't mean to be ageist, but
I want to say he's in his mid-30s. He's probably either as old as me or just about.
Okay.
So, but I mean, age usually doesn't have that big of a. I mean, he's a good worker. He's not been out with an injury for any prolonged period of time, which is often sometimes a mark against you. Like if you're too injury prone.
I get it. If you're not reliable.
Yeah,
I get it.
So.
Okay.
But no, then there's a couple others. I mean, my hope is always that when they do the Royal Rumble, that they make a new star out of it. And a lot of times, sometimes going into that Rumble, you also get to kind of shake things up a little bit and start rivalries with somebody. So sometimes if one guy threw another guy over, that might start a rivalry. Or how do you get rid of Kane, the Big Show, which are these massive 7-foot tall guys that just take people out by just lifting them up off the ground and throwing them over half the time. So there's always those notions, and so, but this often starts the WrestleMania season where they start gearing up toward WrestleMania and promoting stories that would either go into
build
that.
The drama.
Yeah, and Becky Lynch is a Royal Rumble winner.
Oh, very cool.
So yeah.
Well, and I guess a follow-up question I had to that was I noticed on USA Channel lots of ads for Elite Wrestling.
So there is a new promotion called All Elite Wrestling. So. The story behind that is that there was a wrestler who was actually in the WWE named Cody Rhodes, who wasn't getting the push that he wanted, much in the same way The Miz is not getting the push. He was not getting a push at all either. And so he decided that he was going to leave, and he went to Japan to go wrestle in Japan. And he made friends with wrestlers in Japan who were a part of a stable called the Bullet Club. It's basically in Japan. It's the Gaijin. It's the evil American foreign invaders gimmick.
Got it. Okay.
And
it's a good storyline.
It is. It's actually there's a wrestler called Finn Balor who we all kind of enjoy. Who's the lead? Who was literally the founder of Bullet Club.
Okay.
And you have AJ Styles, another prominent wrestler. He was a IWGP, which stands for International Wrestling Grand Prix. That's the name of their titles.
Oh, good.
It's always kind of a misnomer because it's New Japan Pro Wrestling, which is like NJPT or something of that. But its titles are known as IWGP, so International Wrestling Grand Prix.
Okay.
So AJ Styles is a IWGP heavyweight champion, and a number of other people from the Bullet Club have gone to the WWE. Which are kind of like the first generation of Bullet Club members. But now we have slightly a newer generation, which included Cody Rhodes, who just goes by Cody now because he can't use the Rhodes part because it's trademarked by the WWE.
Okay.
Another pair of wrestlers called the Young Bucks. These are a pair of twins that do tag team wrestling. They're not really distinct at all. Like I think the only difference is one has big goatee, has a big kind of like mutton chops, while the other one doesn't.
Okay, so they've made sort of their own distinctions.
Yeah, and then there's another great Canadian wrestler by the name of Kenny Omega, who was also a IWGP heavyweight champion, a bunch of other championships as well. And they've basically were able to create their own wrestling stable out of basically the world saying like, hey, you guys will never be big enough to sell a crowd. Well, they were like, okay, well, challenge accepted.
Okay.
They booked an arena for 10,000 tickets. The tickets sold out in about 5 minutes. And then they did it again. And again, it sold out within about 5-10 minutes. And they realized, okay, well, we kind of got lightning in a bottle here. They've since partnered with Tony Khan, whose dad owns the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Okay.
So that's where they're getting the funding from, and now Cody Rhodes is like the executive, is one of the basically the leader of all the creative for AEW, which is a new wrestling promotion, and one of its big gets is Chris Jericho, who was formerly with the WWE, wrestling along with Kenny Omega and in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and actually to this day still was. They just had Wrestle Kingdom 14, which is kind of like the Japan's WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And they were doing, and they had their WrestleMania, and Chris Jericho wrestled in Japan again. So
that's pretty cool.
And so they were also able to get one of the former WWE stars' name, who went by Dean Ambrose, now goes by Jon Moxley. They were able to get him from the WWE, and a couple other notable names have joined over. So it's interesting because it's reinvigorating kind of like what used to be the Monday Night Wars with WCW versus the WWF.
Right.
But now it's on Wednesday, so it's like the Wednesday Night Wars.
Okay.
So that's a big thing that's kind of going on as well right now. They're not doing a lot of touring because I think they're trying to keep the wrestlers as fresh as possible. But they're doing interesting stuff. And if by comparison this would be a slightly more mature and adult version of wrestling versus where like the WWE is a little bit more
family friendly,
more family friendly, definitely more family friendly. So.
Yeah, I guess that's one of the things that surprised me when we went was that there were, aside from the audience participation, which was woo woo.
There were a lot of kids.
There were a lot of kids.
A lot of parents and kids, and a lot of them all dressed up with the rest of the wrestling gear and the hats and
makeup and a little bit of everything. Okay, so that was my number 3. What's your number 3?
I enjoyed World of Warcraft with you. And
that's my number 2.
Okay, so I enjoyed playing World of Warcraft with you. We could work on your movement skills in the game. But
I was having a hard time getting around.
Yeah, but no, I think I was enjoying that mostly just because it was something you and me were doing, and we were, to see your face light up when you were doing stuff was awesome. Like that's always one of the interesting things that when we're doing stuff together, that watching you just kind of like click and all this is happening around you, and I thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it's one of my favorite hobbies as well for the most part. If I were to I would love to get you into like the higher level stuff. Yeah, but I work.
So you could get to the higher level stuff.
Well, I've been in the higher level stuff. So, but I find it interesting to watch you play because again, you don't play a lot of video games.
I don't.
And to watch you play this game, and we should have it just
because Words with Friends doesn't count.
No, I mean, what we ought to do one day is I'll just play a couple older games, and we can work our way up to slightly more recent games.
Yeah.
But to watch you play and to watch you, like, your eyes light up when it's like, okay, this makes sense now, and it was like perfect.
Yeah.
And I also enjoyed it because I don't play a Pandarian very often, so I don't know the world. I don't know their starting area, and I can't roam around it very easily. I have to kind of learn it as you did, so there was a part of that where, like, we were both learning and watching everything happen.
Well, and I actually was, especially as I got to sort of glamour out and she earned things, because I am a girly girl.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed the whole sort of world and the little evil elf creatures and just that whole sort of thing going on the quest. That was a lot of fun, and that was I think the things I enjoyed the most were the things that I was kind of like, I'm along for the ride. Mm-hmm. Because I'm always along for the ride.
Yeah.
I'm pretty game. But I'm along for the ride, and I'm going along. And those were the things that ended up being the most fun, the things that I didn't expect to be that engaged in.
Mm-hmm.
That those for me were the hits.
Yeah.
And I loved that you helped me because I was really getting quite lost. But sort of the whole exploring the other side, because I realized that millions of people play World of Warcraft.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to I think disassociate yourself from those sorts of things because you think, well, that's somebody else's world. Mm-hmm. And that's and just blanket say that's not for me.
Yeah.
And if I've learned anything in life, it's that you have to be open to everything. Mm-hmm. And that was something where, actually, that is for me.
Oh, okay.
So I really enjoyed that. So that's something that when I have more time, I could see myself doing. Right now, I just don't have time.
No.
But I could really see myself getting engaged in.
So what's actually kind of interesting, here's a great little World of Warcraft story here, is that back in the very early days of World of Warcraft, nobody knew how you made videos in the game. We all know now how you make videos in the game, but one guy actually went out and the process is known as machinima, which is basically taking video game footage and making it look like you were recording it in as if you were like theatrical productions or movies and things like that.
Yeah.
Well, what he did is he figured out how to have other characters follow his other characters while they're all doing it in game, and created a movie out of it. And they had like a movie contest at the first BlizzCon in 2007. And the World of Warcraft team was so amazed. They were thinking, okay, well, clearly he created like a private server, or he hacked the game in some sort of way here. And when he later explained to them, like, no, this is how I did it, they looked at him as if like, I never figured that out. We never figured that out. They offered him a job. He is now the head of cinematics for Blizzard Interactive. And the reason I tell this story is that he got his when he got hired for the game, his mom was like, "Oh, well, what is that?" His mom and his dad now play in game with him, and actually in the game. And the Blizzard staff have done this over the years, where they've left stuff in the game on occasions, like when they have people who visit their studios for Make-A-Wish or stuff like that. They'll leave elements of those characters in the games for them to still kind of exist in a way, so they're never really lost at all.
That's kind of neat.
But his parents roam the city of Stormwind, as does he, and occasionally they'll bump into each other.
Oh, that's fun.
So as you're literally in this giant city with all these players moving around, there's NPCs which are also moving around, and sometimes they're having their own conversations, or they're talking to themselves, or they're doing stuff. His parents roam through the game.
That's cool.
So
that's cool. So I mean, I guess the lesson for me has been, and that's just one of several examples. Because I would say, going to the manga museum, same sort of thing for me. The lesson for me has been, if millions of people like it, millions of people aren't wrong, and it may not be for everyone, but there's joy. There's certainly joy to be had, and there's a reason why these things are popular.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why they've gotten such broad acceptance.
Oh yeah, no, being a nerd for me has always been this notion to not discount something I don't understand, because I mean, like I don't get Harry Potter fans. I honestly don't. Like
I read the books with your brother, and I would cheat. Mm-hmm. And after he fell asleep, go back in his room and sneak the book out so I could continue reading.
Oh no, don't get me wrong. I like the stories. I don't understand the fans. Oh. Like there are some fans that are like,
we saw people in costume in
anime, yes.
Well, no, at
Universal Studios. Yeah, that's right.
At Universal in Osaka.
Oh yeah,
it was a huge. And I think what surprised me about that was that I didn't perceive it as being an international thing. I perceived it as being sort of a
Western world sort of.
Well, not even a Western world, British American. Yeah. I didn't see it being outside of British American. I don't know why. Yeah, very narrow of me, but it,
for me, the fandom has never just clicked for me. Like I understand it and I understand what it is, but like after I read the books, I was not like, oh my goodness, I have to go join like a Harry Potter subreddit, or I have to learn more about these characters. Like I was okay with being done after a certain point, but I appreciate why some people would love these stories. In particular, the way I can tell people love it is because they grew up with it.
That's true. So your youngest brother grew up with it.
Yeah, and
he's 10 years young.
And I can appreciate how like one of my favorite Japanese animation is something I grew up with when I was first going into the medium, and that's Ranma 1/2 and Evangelion. Now, to this day, I don't recommend Evangelion because it's an effed up series that's that you can't really appreciate without having watched a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
But I recommend Ranma 1/2 all day long. I think that's a hilarious manga and and just as good anime. But I think
and the things that, what I would compare it to is like you and Mark grew up with Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Mm-hmm.
John grew up with Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yes. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. All of you grew up with Pokemon to some degree.
Yes.
Yeah. But Yu-Gi-Oh was never something that you did. But Magic the Gathering was never something he did.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So your number 2 was World of Warcraft, you said.
Yeah. I was surprised at how fun that was.
Mm-hmm.
I really was. That was cool.
So a tangent to World of Warcraft then that I would recommend is that we do another Dungeons and Dragons maybe.
Okay.
So, because that was
see now, and when I was trying to make my list, Dungeons and Dragons was number 4 or 5.
Okay.
I was trying to figure it out. I think my number 1 will I excluded Japan from the list.
Yes,
okay. Because
that would both be our number 1s.
Yeah. So I excluded Japan from the list, but Dungeons and Dragons, and especially because it occasionally takes place in my house, and because I tried to be part of a group 30 years ago before you were even 35 years ago, before you were even born.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in public accounting, there was somebody I worked with who had a group, and we played a couple of times, but your father wasn't into it, so it didn't catch with us. But I found that fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I like being a tiefling.
Oh yes. No.
So I found that interesting as well, and I think part of what I'm realizing is that I think we discount the need for escapism.
Oh, absolutely.
And the need for role playing, because there aren't a whole lot of things in adult life that allow you to do that, where you get to take on a different role. And I enjoyed the process in both Dungeons and Dragons and in World of Warcraft. I really enjoyed the process of kind of deciding, looking at the qualities I could have,
mm-hmm.
and kind of pulling on which of those I'd like to have, like to choose.
Yeah, no.
The ability to choose sort of who you were going to play.
what you wanted to be if you had the option to, and being able to just let the rest of the world kind of disappear and just engross yourself in something completely different, where we're not worrying about politics, we're not worrying about strife, probably not job unless it's an element to the game.
Yeah. I mean, being Princess Peach for a day was fun for me.
So that's actually my number 2.
Okay.
So cosplaying with you was a hoot on that day. I think for 2 different reasons. One of which was that, like, I got to do something that wasn't typical. Mm-hmm. And to see your first reaction was certainly hilarious to me.
Not everybody gets to see their son in drag, okay?
No. Again, I always kind of wanted to try it. I never had like a good reason to do it on any particular level. When my office coworker, like, because she's a makeup artist and she was talking with me about it, it's like, you know, have you ever thought of doing drag? And I was just like, no. And then the thought bubble slept in my head for weeks. And then I looked at her, it's like, because she had told me, like, well, if you ever want to do drag, I'll do your makeup. And so I spent like a week or 2 thinking about it, and then I looked at her, it was like, what if we did this? She's like, yeah, that's cool. So then this entire process of putting together this costume and stuff, you know, was unique on my particular level, but hey, like, not very often you get to do that, to dress up in drag.
Oh, and that for me was a really good experience. You know, I've in the past done your costumes. Mm-hmm. And made them, and yeah, I've never gotten to experience
wearing it, or
where they go from there. So for me, that was really a lot of fun. Now I bought Princess Peach because she was readily available, mm-hmm. And good quality and not terribly expensive. So I was pretty thrilled with that.
Yeah, no, I find a lot of cosplay, especially if you're buying it online or having unless unlikely for somebody to sew it for you locally. If you're going to get it made, you'll often have it made usually in China and a lot of places.
Yeah, mine was made in China, and I ordered it big because I was worried about it being too small. Yeah, and it ended up being just huge, mm-hmm. and I ended up having to take it in. But I ordered the pieces, the brooch and the earrings and the crown. Mm-hmm. I got on Etsy, and they were digitally printed.
Yes, a lot of stuff, especially with the age of maker bots and things like that, where you can basically make almost anything you want and just polish it up and paint it later, which was really cool. Like, I know a couple of my pieces were that way as well.
They were really nice.
Yeah. And again, that was a lot of my stuff. Again, same thing. Again, custom made for me, but on a digital printer,
digitally printed, and
or 3D printer.
A 3D printer, and so that whole process, except that my curls didn't stay. But I have Princess Peach's naturally blonde long hair.
Yep.
So it was suitable. That experience for me, walking in, and more so for you, I walked from my office, which is downtown, probably three blocks.
I would say 3 blocks or so.
Yeah, 3 blocks or so, to you, and people were. It was quite something, because I wasn't in the direction. I was walking in the direction of the convention center, but I wasn't in and around the convention center until mm-hmm. I got to you, and so people were a little
confused.
Yeah,
I had that happen one time. If you remember when we did Greek dancing, the one time it was in San Jose. I think one of the days I got your parking pass for your office
space.
Right,
which makes sense, yeah.
And I parked at your office space because it was very easy to get to. I remember walking in my full Greek costume regalia back to there, and I passed a parent and his son, and they were remarking about, you know, one of them mentions, like, oh wow, look at that guy there. I was like, yeah, something must be going on. And again, like
and mind you, when you were in your Greek costume, you were in skirts.
Yes.
Because it was a traditional Fustanella costume.
Yes.
Yeah. So part of that experience for me was just the whole walking around and having people take your picture, mm-hmm. and how much fun that was, and
Kind
then
of look at the various stuff that people were selling and all the other people in costumes as well.
Well, and that huge floor, and there was so much going on because there were Magic the Gathering things, and there was model making, and there was
video
games, and older video games, which really surprised me, like video games from the 50s or from the 60s and 70s and 80s, I guess.
Yes.
And I don't think I had realized quite how dynamic it was. There was a anime artist who was drawing on an overhead, so you could watch him draw. There was the Big Cafe. So there were all these different elements. And then you had what was outside, which I asked you about at the time, and you told me was fairly typical. And that's the you're all going to hell. Find God.
Yeah.
Which especially you and Drag got.
I know he focused on me
targeted
for a
you.
little
Yeah, he targeted you a bit.
What again? Like, you either believe or you don't believe, and if you don't believe, like, then you don't care, and if you do believe, you wouldn't be there to begin with. And I've met a number of those guys that with those giant signs, screaming and yelling at people, proselytizing,
yeah.
Which is also a great word that I always get compliments for whenever I say, because everyone's always like, "What the hell does that mean?" It's like, proselytizing. What do you think it means?
Yeah, as opposed to prostituting.
Yeah.
I've always found it curious that those are, and I have to say, I mean, as you know, I teach Sunday school, and I'm in church most every Sunday. So, but my God doesn't care what you look like; He cares about who you are.
Yeah.
And that would be the difference there. So.
I always love this notion here. That was like, oh well, you can't. Well, they worship swords. They worship magic. This is like. No, we appreciate the story that's being told, and yes, the character is swinging around a magic wand. Like, boo effing who? It doesn't matter.
That's like the hoopla over Harry Potter and don't let your child read those books because they're talking about incantations. A good book is a good book, and if it gets your child to read, who cares? A belief system is a whole different set of core values, and if you're solid in your belief system,
it doesn't matter.
And your faith, then what
matters. Yeah, I was and one of the things I really take away from was just directly after that were the other people we were walking with, and one guy who really wanted to go back there and just beat him up for that. And we kind of had to explain to him that, yeah, you go and do that. It's what he wants you to go and do. He wants you to go and beat him up. So that way, not only do you get arrested, he looks like a martyr at the end of the day. He's the victim, and he gets to be the hero at the end of the day. And that's all he's doing there to begin with. He's going to be the hero to him. In either case, he's a hero to himself because either A, he stood in front of all these people and allowed the heathens to walk. He walked amongst the heathens and came out, say, perfectly fine. He maybe converted one or two other people for one reason or another.
Do you think that ever really happens?
No, I don't believe that in a second. I
don't think open-minded people. I would assume that most people who go to something like Fanime are open-minded, and I don't think open-minded people party on with closed-minded people.
Well, not even so much that. So much as that if somebody were to sway you so easily with just some words like that you would not probably be swayed. You would have had those inklings already. You would have had those beliefs already, most likely.
Yeah.
And if somebody were able to sway you like that so easily, then like you really didn't believe in whatever you were believing in right then and there anyways. And, and so that part I don't care about. I found the costume hilarious to wear.
Well, and you switched it up a little bit later and kept the heels and a skirt.
Yes, I went and found office attire.
Yeah.
And went back to work for a little bit, helping with the elevator situation, which was a real issue at the hotel because some of the elevators weren't working and always ends up being a crowd by the elevators. So, but no, again, I thought that part was hilarious. And the one thing I would change if I had to do that all over again, different heels.
Yeah, me too. Because I wore shoes that I would ordinarily wear to the office, and I would have told you were really comfortable. But whether it was the heat that day, because it was a warm day,
it was a very warm day, yeah.
And whether it was heat that day or the amount we walked, well, my feet were not happy.
Well, the one thing I got told originally from my friend who was helping me with the costume is that I should have gotten platform shoes.
Yeah, I wear wedges most of the time.
Well, platform is like with a 2-inch sort of additional kind of thing underneath.
Yeah.
And I usually balked at that because it was like, oh no, that's going to be way too high. I don't wear heels to begin with. I'll never be able to navigate that. And at the same time,
it would have been easier because your arch wouldn't have been as stretched.
Yeah. So,
but finding those in your size would have been quite the.
Well, again, I mean, it's Amazon apparently sells the shoe size in my size, which is where I got it from.
Oh, cool.
So
good to know.
So apparently I wear a women's 16.
Can I just say, I have big feet and I wear a 10.
Okay. In general, though, then like in men's, I wear like a size 14.5 to a 15. I often have to wear a 15 because my feet are wider than
a standard 14 and a half.
Standard 14 and 14 and a half is.
I birthed boys with big feet.
I often tell the story if I would go to find shoes. It's like that scene in Star Wars at the very beginning. It's like, droids, we don't serve your kind here. You walk into a shoe store. The largest size for men they tend to carry is a 13. If they carry a 14 or a 15, it's like they have to go into the very back of the shop. They pull out a box. Oh, I haven't seen one of these in a while. As they blow off the dust off the top of the box. Will these work for you? It's like no.
No. So. Yeah, no, I remember years and years ago, and this is back when you were in high school, we were trying to buy you dress shoes at Macy's. Mm-hmm. And when we asked for I think at the time it might have been a 13. Mm-hmm. The girl said, oh, "That's big," and you were embarrassed, but you turned around and said, "Well, you know what they say about men with big feet," and that shut her up.
Yep, that's right. Big socks.
Yeah. Okay.
So what was your so cosplaying? If I had the chance to cosplay with you again, that'd be cool. Yeah. Or if we did it again, at work they were telling me I should try to do Ursula next time.
Yeah, Ursula would be good.
I think that'd be kind of funny. I could reuse a lot of the same stuff I had before. Just figure out how to paint, maybe not paint my body, but just the face, and get like a white wig and find a way to make tentacles.
Yeah. Well, I did tentacles for your sister one time because she had to be an octopus, and I can explain to you how I do it. I took 4 pairs of white tights.
Oh, okay.
And I took the thin balloons, mm-hmm. and I curled up the thin balloons and put the tights over them, well, and then used something called stiffy stuff.
Okay.
To harden them, and then I made potato stamps. And
for the suction cups.
Yeah, to print on the suction cups.
See, I was thinking doing a bit similar to the way I did the tail, which has kind of its own little curve, and I was thinking if you do the pattern like a curl already, you can kind of make it look like they're coming up out of the skirt maybe or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And originally thinking that if you get like again, like I'm going to assume like 8 maybe, you get like 8 of those, you get like. You can have them kind of hanging just right underneath the skirt like they're coming out almost like those are actually the feet for the skirt.
Well, they have 8 legs.
Well, yes, octopus too.
Yeah.
So, all right. Okay. So what was your number one thing?
Okay. So I was really surprised with how taken I was with the whole Marvel universe.
Oh, okay.
The whole sort of DC. Okay, so Endgame and getting ready to watch Endgame, mm-hmm. and I kind of watched some of the movies before. I'd certainly seen all of the Iron Man. Your father really likes Iron Man, but was not really into that series of characters. And I think part of your explanation, part of it was for me your explanation of sort of the psychology behind some of the characters.
Oh yeah.
That really helped me appreciate exactly what was going on there. I really enjoyed watching Spider-Man kind of develop.
Oh yeah, no. One of the hallmarks what I've really found interesting about the just Marvel characters in general is just how well they were created when they were created. And oddly enough, like, these are characters that were created with maybe the exception of Captain America was more like an element of the 40s.
Yeah.
And for the literal time in which he was created. But we look at, like, Iron Man and the Hulk, and these are all characters that have that were more or less birthed during the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And very much if you go back to those original comics, like, again, like, Iron Man is fighting the Viet Cong. And now modern days would probably be fighting like the Afghanistan or in the Middle East maybe.
Yeah.
But just how much these characters not only speak to kind of our current understanding of the world and how well they still fit in this world, that, like, even then, like, you can still have them, you know, even if you just take them at their base value, that how much over the course of the movies they change so much. I mean, like,
they've grown and evolved, and you see that, I think, the most in Captain America.
I think absolutely. I mean,
but having lived through several iterations of Spider-Man, I find the new Aunt May and
I love the new Aunt May. I think the new Aunt May is awesome.
Yeah, and the new
Peter Parker.
Peter Parker.
I love this Peter Parker because he's not confident. And I like the notion that he's not confident because it really speaks to the notion that you don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. You don't have to be the bravest or anything. But when the time comes, you can be if you wanted to.
You can be an everyday hero.
Yeah, or just in general, like, even at the end of, like, Spider-Man: Homecoming, which a lot of people don't find that to be the best great Spider-Man movie. I liked it because, again, it was very much, you know, like, at the end of the day, he doesn't give into the note. He doesn't want to become an Avenger, which was his entire dream, the entire thing. And he's like, no, I just want to be a neighborhood Spider-Man. I don't want to, you know, like, you got to protect the little people too. So
yeah,
and I think a lot of the characters have really. I mean, we've had the distinct pleasure of enjoying it for the last 12 years. I want to say.
Yeah.
This, you know, Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I'm curious to see the next Doctor Strange. I'm curious to see Captain Marvel. I think we're both really excited for Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
I'm a big Guardians. I mean, that is the one that appealed to me first.
Oh, I think it's got such a unique family dynamic to it.
It's a buddy movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Like yeah.
I'm also curious for the next Thor movie, Love and Thunder, because we'll get Natalie Portman back.
Love Fat Thor.
Oh. Well, again, I mean, like, it was kind of amazing that we saw that costume so frequently. I've seen that costume in a number of cases at cons now, and I think that's hilarious. I do hope that
because we can identify with somebody who let them themselves go.
Oh, it was perfect. Oh, he was so
Couple
perfect.
beers. Yeah. So I think I was really surprised and delighted with. Okay, so for me that was kind of like your Harry Potter thing.
Okay.
You know, enjoy the good story, but don't get people being that into it. Mm-hmm. And I kind of get people being that into it. How
was your Christmas present?
I love my Captain Marvel.
Where does she sit in your
office? She is on my credenza behind me. Oh. So if you were to sit across in my guest chairs, you would see her.
Ah. Yeah. Have you got any comments about it, or?
Well, my boss was like, "What is that?" I said, "Well, yeah, this is because I have the Flurkin, and the Funko Captain Marvel on my desk right by my monitors." Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What did he think?
Oh, he thinks I'm nuts anyway. So this
is the big boss, or this is his son?
This is the father. Yeah.
Okay.
He's in his early 80s, and kind of a conservative guy.
Okay.
At times, I think I drive him crazy, but that's okay.
Well, I mean, if you don't drive your boss crazy, they won't know you exist.
I do good work, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, absolutely. So, awesome.
Yeah, so that was my fave. So what was your fave?
I enjoyed you watching anime. It was one of the very first episodes we did, and I think it was a great starting point because it was very much... Because again,
it's the ultimate nerd thing.
Well, I don't know if it's the ultimate nerd thing, but it's a very large demographic of nerdy stuff, and that's kind of my epicenter for the most part for nerdy stuff is mostly Japanese stuff. I loved being able to do both the anime and the manga because I remember giving you the manga to read.
Yeah.
In particular, like I love the notion of letting you read the basketball manga, having seen the anime, and being able to tie that one to one and see what the difference is. I'd love to do that with more stuff.
That actually was really cool for me.
Yeah, to read a couple early chapters and then watch the show
and see how
the difference.
And then Bunny
Bunny Girl Senpai.
Yeah,
was also is a good show. I still love the other one, which I can't remember the name to save my life, but you hated it with the Soylent Green.
Yeah, the Soylent Green.
The Promised Neverland.
Promised Neverland. Yeah. We're going to be in a nice little foster adoptive house, and then you're going to get adopted, but you're not really getting adopted. You're getting fed to a monster.
So as a spoiler, I'll give you some good news. Some of the kids make it out. So of the original of like the three that are in the main title card, two of them get out. One of them sacrifices himself to get
himself or herself. Himself. Okay.
Yes.
Because the girl seems very much the type.
Yeah, she's very much the heroine of the series.
Yeah.
And they make out with about more than half of the kids. A lot of them older kids, with the intention that they can come back for the younger kids because the younger kids will take longer to mature to become ripe and
to be a big enough to be a snack.
Well, I mean, right now I think they're snack related, snack adjacent.
Okay.
So, but no, I loved being able to show that to you because, I mean, like before I was ever playing World of Warcraft, before I was ever into cosplay, before like even a lot of that, I was into Japanese animation, and even now I still read quite a bit of Japanese manga. I tend to find myself enjoying more lackadaisical, kind of just like everyday sort of stories.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really enjoying shows. Series in which like the main character is annoyed by another character primarily, weirdly enough, but no, that was my thing, and I would love to. I have ideas for upcoming stuff, thanks to some generous Christmas presents I've been giving.
Okay.
So I have a wonderful theme that we could go to next after this.
Okay.
But no, again, I would love to continue to do, to introduce you to some Japanese animation and stuff, things you might want to consider watching at a later time, or things that would be interesting, and also just kind of to share. Like, I still really want to get you to watch Silent Voice, to kind of see because mind you, like I had to watch my nieces for a night. And I brought them My Neighbor Totoro, and so my younger brother didn't have to go to work, so he's just there as well. And he kept looking at me as if it was like the dumbest thing in the world. Why haven't they made a sequel to My Neighbor Totoro? And I had to tell him, like, that's not what the Japanese do. They're not into sequels unless it's like a huge franchise. And My Neighbor Totoro is a big franchise, but Studio Ghibli is not going to do another film in that.
Well, and we saw, we saw all over Japan. If you went into shops, Totoro.
Oh yeah.
And had I known how much Mia and Nina would enjoy it.
Oh yeah, no.
We'd have brought them back one. Oh my gosh.
I hadn't thought to think about it in that context at all, because I didn't want to bring them back something they weren't aware of.
Yeah,
because again, I wanted them to be able to light up right away when they saw it. I didn't want them to look at it and be like, "What is that?" And so, but even again, when I brought the DVD, and apparently DVDs are not a thing anymore. So thank goodness I had a copy of it on my phone. But I had a little stuffed Totoro that I brought with me and let them hang on to. Nina loves that little thing, apparently.
Well, they loved the movie. They both told me about it afterwards.
Okay.
And so it was a hit with them. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of wondering if they're ready for Spirited Away, or if that's a little bit older.
Oh, I was going to bring them. I mean, there's other Studio Ghibli films. I was going to bring them Ponyo, which is about a girl who's technically a fish but becomes a human.
Oh, they would love that.
Yeah, I think there's other Studio Ghibli films. I'm not going to bring them Grave of the Fireflies.
Thank you.
Which is definitely not something to bring to children right away. It's basically World War II.
Oh.
Not the fighting or anything, but a pair of orphans, an older brother and his much younger sister, who are fleeing during the American invasion of Japan.
Yeah.
So, especially with firebombs and things of that nature, kind of going off all around them.
Yeah, no, that'd be frightening.
Yeah, well, not even so much frightening; it's just not appropriate material for a 6 and an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
So, that is definitely not going to happen.
Well, they love Totoro.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, do we talk about Japan yet?
Yeah, well, okay. So I want to double back just a little bit because it ties into Japan, and that's that when we were there, like one of the restaurants we went to had manga books in the restaurant, and we were looking at them on the wall and a whole series, and you even were intrigued by one of the series they had that you weren't
can't find an English translation
of it. Oh,
right.
Because it did look fascinating.
And mind you, it takes place in the area too.
Yeah,
it literally takes place in Kyoto. And I lament the fact that I can't find a decent version of it, if only mostly because when I go to try to search for it online, there was a drama series for it that circumvents a lot of the searches.
Oh.
So
you keep coming up with that.
So I keep coming up with that. And mind you, there's been other ones where it was a manga first, then became a live action sort of thing, and then became an anime.
Yeah.
Japanese dramas are not inconsequential. It's where I first heard of Ken Watanabe, who always played a fatherly samurai. Can you imagine Ken Watanabe not playing a samurai? Yeah. I'm surprised he doesn't play a samurai in every movie he does in American movies.
Yeah.
I just actually recently watched him again in Inception, and still every time I'm just like, this man speaks beautiful broken English. I would listen to this man narrate books.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and I'm an Audible listener, so I second that.
Absolutely. No, but no, it was amazing being in Japan. It really was just the number of stuff there.
Yeah. So the things that I really appreciated and again tying this back to the whole manga and anime discussion, so many of the shops we went into, even not just in Akihabara, but in other in Osaka and Kyoto and things were paid homage to anime, and you saw it in 7-Elevens. You saw it.
Oh yeah, no, they're selling.
You saw it everywhere. But the thing that I think most touched me was really seeing it at the manga museum. That was one of those. That was like one of several things that I thought, okay, I'm just going to this for you, and I'm along for the ride, and I'll take from it what I can take from it. I had such a blast watching all those people just sit and enjoy, whether they were laying on the lawn out front or they were sitting in stairwells, any place where you could sit or leaning against the wall. There was somebody there reading something. When was the last time you went to a library that was just packed with people and everybody was engaged and enjoying and reading and just so into it?
I love the museum's concept as well, that it was a former elementary school that eventually the city decided they had too many elementary schools and not enough students for it, and then this company came in and created this manga museum out of it and collected all this amazing manga. The first floor had a number of translated English works, as well as other languages,
French and German,
Italian, Vietnamese. But everywhere else around the entire place was nothing but Japanese manga. And one of those things that I take away from this was that I knew how prevalent manga was, having watched actually a great show called Bakuman, which actually goes through the process of a weekly Shonen Jump manga creation, in kind of an interesting fashion too. It's very interesting because it's made by the same company that was publishing the actual comics, so they were able to kind of the author was literally able to say, this is how you go through the process of making manga.
Well, and I actually saw some displays. They had some nice displays that explained both that and how the money you spend on a particular manga, how that dribbles through the system
back to the author. Yeah,
yeah.
But I love that museum just because it was so perfect and made me really wish that that I'm glad that I'm trying to learn more Japanese. I'm learning my hiragana, and trying to read it at least and getting better. It's one of those things where like you absorb it as quickly as you can, over time, and just repetitiveness of it will get you there. But no, it's just one of those things where it was just like that I had to remember that like these people who live here in Japan, especially here in Kyoto, who maybe live 2 or 3 bus stops away, can spend $2 or $3 because again the buses there again in Kyoto were like 2,300 yen.
Yeah.
Cheapest,
wherever you're going,
in limited stops, just 2,300 yen, and you could go down to this library, basically this giant library, for like $7. You could park yourself there at 10 a.m. in the morning and just read manga all day long. And I relate that because I remember when back in the day when we had more Barnes and Nobles and Borders bookstores that people would go to the manga section, grab a stack of manga, find a chair, and just start reading in there. I remember doing that when I was traveling for work in college.
Yeah.
And when I had I'd get to the next site I had to be at, and I'd be like, oh, well, my thing doesn't start for another 3 hours.
Yeah.
Well, hey, look, there's a Borders or there's a Barnes and Noble. Yeah. I guess I'll go inside there and I'll find something to read for a couple hours.
Yeah.
And I could literally find something to read for literally the next couple hours. Like I can imagine that the people in Kyoto, like, well, how are you spending your Saturdays? Like, oh, I'm going to go read manga. Yeah. Oh, anything in particular? I don't know. Let's see what they have at the manga museum.
Well, and the fact that it's so easy to come by and inexpensive in the 7-Eleven as well. Mm-hmm. So it's really accessible.
Oh, no, absolutely. And I still explain to people like the 7-Elevens in Japan to this day.
Yeah.
I love explaining the trains, and I love explaining the IC card.
Yeah.
And I love explaining the 7-Elevens, that they were just so, all these family marts and everything were just so ubiquitous.
Yeah.
That you could walk in, grab a full meal, and then, leave theoretically. There was never not plenty of different options.
Well, and good quality too.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, nice meals. Okay, so Japan. A friend of mine just this week said, well, they were planning to go in April of 2021, and could I give them our itinerary and tell them what I would change? And as I went through it, I thought there's very little of this that I would change. There were probably things that, because this is a couple who have no interest in say, anime, there's probably things like that they may not do. But for us, there really isn't anything that we did that I wouldn't have wanted to do.
I think the lone exception might be us getting to Mount Fuji.
Yeah.
And then
I wish and what I told Lori was I wish we had one more day there.
Yes, I agree.
I think that would have been the thing. Would have been to have a full day so that we could, because I really would have liked to have ridden bikes around the lake.
Absolutely. One more day at Mount Fuji, especially at that hotel, would have been cool.
Yeah.
I think the other one was not the sightseeing tour bus in Kyoto.
Yeah.
All those sites, yes, like especially like the Golden Domed Plaza, and then we went to the very last thing at the end was a shrine that was where the Kyoto's emperor,
the Imperial Palace,
the Imperial Palace, but the shrine before it, because it was the shrine in which
it was a really cool shrine too.
Absolutely, and we got to hear like these monks chanting and doing their thing as they walked around. Pleasantly surprised by the samurai experience.
That was
not expecting that,
because it was originally advertised as a museum, and it turned out to be a whole samurai experience, and I had a blast. I will probably never again throw ninja stars
or swing a sword
or blow darts.
Well, I appreciated the history lesson of that too, because it's always kind of this notion that like all these warring states, because nobody could agree who was the emperor after a certain point. Like that was nice because it was explained to me in English instead of on in like Japanese or something. Where in a lot of times when you read Japanese history, you watch it on if it's a historical piece. They often kind of blow through it really quickly because they kind of assume you know what it is because they kind of assume they're Japanese people watching.
Right.
As where, like, I appreciate that somebody was able to narrate it in English.
Yeah, and that was an evening experience that we went to. It took place in almost like a mall.
Well, we saw that style of mall fairly frequently too.
Yeah,
actually.
we did. It's sort of the alleyway thing that
it's a covered mall.
Yeah, covered thing.
Lots of tiny shops too. That was always the other thing I had to explain to people. It's like all these shops are bigger.
Well,
very
even
tiny.
department stores aren't really department stores because a lot of them are just a building that houses lots of small, independently owned businesses.
Like, so that last day we were in Tokyo, would you not agree that one store that we went to seemed like it had been put together one floor at a time?
Well, yeah, and even when we were going to the Pokemon Center in Tokyo, that thing was obviously a whole bunch of different vendors,
different stores, fronts, and other stuff.
Yeah, each with their own kiosk under the umbrella of one department store.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really different.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, I think so. Like anything else, your giant Gundam.
Oh my goodness.
That was a blast. Well, and that we managed to catch it because we were tired and we hadn't eaten, and so we ran into the place. We went, okay, there it is. It's lit. Fine. We took our pictures because we'd had to walk in the rain to get there.
Yeah. And
we weren't quite sure where it was, so it took us a little.
It took a little longer than we needed.
Yeah. And it was raining, and so we ran inside and ate in the food court, which was still a good meal.
Excellent meal.
But we ate in the food court, and then all of a sudden we realized
it's lighting up. It's doing
lighting
stuff.
Up. It's doing something. And we ran outside, and we got to see the whole performance. And the rain broke for a moment, so we got to see it, like not raining. We got to see the whole broadcast against the side of the building. It was so cool.
Yeah.
It was just like that was meant to be.
Yeah, it was just a giant statue. And actually, that'll tie into what we're doing next week. We're going to watch that show.
Oh, perfect.
Because for Christmas, I got a model kit for it.
Is that what John gave you? Okay.
So John got me a master grade, which is a good quality 1/100 model scale of the Gundam Unicorn. And so during this last week, I procured Gundam pens to detail it with, as well as good tools to sand down the nubs and release it from its holdings and bindings.
Okay.
And I've also gotten you one as well.
I have nail files, by the way. I know my father used to use my nail files.
I have a big collection of nail files behind you. But I've also gotten you a smaller one as well.
Oh.
So you're going to get to build your own as well. We'll build it together
after
watching the show.
Oh, very good. Okay.
And we'll do not only a podcast on Gundam itself, and in this case we'll watch Gundam Unicorn, which I think is a very good intro into Gundam. It's clearly like the best quality Gundam I can offer you at this point in time versus the very early 1978 Gundam.
Okay.
Which did not age well. Although, it's
surprising the things that do and don't, you know?
Well, not in the sense that it doesn't age well in which like the story or anything. It doesn't age well because it was 1970s animation.
Yeah.
And a big reason why mecha was very popular in the 1970s is because you don't have to do a lot of animation of the face.
Yeah.
And so, but even then, it's very blocky and kind of hard to watch on certain levels. There's a show called Gundam Origin, which kind of tells the story up until that point. That's also pretty good. But I think Gundam Unicorn, if you're even slightly interested in this, Gundam Unicorn is good because it's originally broadcasted in a hour-long format, little hour, 10-minute sort of little movies that you watch. And there's about 7 or 8 of them. so that it won't take forever to watch. You don't have to watch all of it, but it's very good of highlighting what Gundam is about. And it's not about giant robots.
Okay.
It's about what do you do when you have the ability to do anything, and how do people get wrapped up into war when they have no intention of getting wrapped up into it.
How do people get carried off?
How do people get carried off, and how do your what is right when you consider that both sides are technically right on their own levels? One might be the aggressor while the other one's not necessarily, or vice versa. Again, Gundam is not about the giant robots. It's about how war is horrible on a certain level, and these are the feelings and reactions you get while you're in it.
Yeah.
But that's what we're going to talk about next week.
Okay. Well, interesting timing for that, considering what's happened this week with Iran.
Yeah, pretty much. And then people wonder why I enjoy the nerdy stuff, because I don't have to listen to the real stuff.
Well, and here's an interesting thing that when we were at your cousin's wedding, and I was talking to your cousin Gina, who is an occasional listener of ours.
Oh, okay, cool. Hi, Gina.
Hi, Gina. So, one of the things she said was, well, there was a time when nerds were not mainstream, and being a nerd was kind of a unique thing. She said it's still kind of a unique thing, but it's so much more mainstream, so much more accepted now.
Oh yeah,
and I think that's really true.
Well, I definitely think it's more acceptable because people are finding out that other people are into this stuff and they're not alone in the world.
Yeah.
So they're less concerned about being judged by other people. I think in that sense, I think
so they're out.
Yeah, I mean they're out. Is it still weird? Yeah, but if you recognize that, yeah, it's weird, but you have a community of people you can lean on or go back to at the end of the day, then it's not as scary at the end of the day. The rest of the world doesn't need to understand that Thanos is the best character in the entire Marvel universe. But like I can go back to my online subreddits and discussions and agree with, yes, he's the best character of all. He had the best glove. It's better than Michael Jackson's. All he had to do was snap.
I guess my thing is, yeah, really. I guess my thing is really that if you have thousands and millions of people playing something or doing something that brings them joy, then there must be something to that, because I don't think that's coincidental. And so if you open yourself up to what might be joyful in it, you might find it.
Absolutely. So excellent. So we'll put all of our notes here on our website here at nerdtutorialpodcast.com. As well, you can continue our discussion at facebook.com/nerdtutorialpodcast, or visit me on Twitter at nerd_tutorial, where I'm always accepting ideas, future critiques, and comments about our podcast. And thank you so much for listening to us. I'm hoping for another fun year of new topics. We're going to focus on some more focused topics here, like we do have ones on Super Mario Brothers, Batman.
I don't understand Super Mario at all.
Excellent.
And don't understand Batman either.
Excellent. But yeah, no, we'll have some slightly more focused topics now that we've gotten a good intro palette in. But if you have further ideas, please let us know. We'd love to hear what you think would be a great future topic. But until then, we'll see you guys again next time, and thank you so much for listening.
Bye.